Oh, hello, Pastor Praveen. Good to see you.
Hello, Psychiatrist Stefan. Good to see you too.
So, what brings you here to my office? Great to see you.
Yeah, I think you're working on that session. You've been called by the Indian Christian Day, that session.
Yes, exactly.
And you had mentioned some topic about, what was it? Mental health and
Yeah,
something?
mental health and the Indian church, a
Okay.
call to action.
Okay, interesting topic. Mental health and the Indian church. By the way, that reminds me, I have a podcaster in a church.
Mhm.
She had recently put up a video which was actually dealing with this thing. Let's just see that, and I need to pick your brain on some aspects of it.
Sure, that's good.
Okay.
Hi, Jobin.
Hi, Angie ma'am. Hi.
How are you, Jobin?
Not feeling good, ma'am. I'm feeling so much stressed.
Stressed about what?
See, when I got this PhD topic, no, interface between philosophy and theology in the early church, I was so enthusiastically, I was so interested in the topic.
Yeah, I know.
But now I lost the interest, Angie ma'am. I don't feel like doing anything.
Mm. Are you sleeping well?
No, Angie ma'am. These days I am not getting any sleep.
Eating?
No, not hungry at all.
Yo, Jobin, I think you need some help. You need to seek help, Jobin.
You just need to pray, Angie ma'am. That will be enough.
I will definitely do that. There's no doubt about that. But this one, it'll be better if you seek help, Jobin. I'll go with you. We'll just see.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, Angie ma'am.
Yes, Johan. Now that we have seen the video, when you had mentioned the topic, this episode had come into my mind. No, just think of Jobin, that PhD student, member of the church. Another member of the church is ready to actually help. And I think she was referring to professional mental health.
That's right.
So she wants to help. She has identified there's a problem. But then there's this big divide between the people in the church and those in the mental health space, the professionals in the mental health space. And I was just wondering, how did we reach here? How did we reach here with this wide gap between the church and mental health and professional mental health and that whole space? It was a thing that got me thinking.
I think it's a great question, Pastor. And in fact, that's how I've organized this talk as well. I've actually organized it into 3 headings, each beginning with an R.
Okay.
And the very first heading is recognizing mental health and the church's role.
Oh.
So I think that ties into what you were actually saying. And it's very interesting that the church historically used to take mental health as very much part of its mandate. And looking into people's emotions and their thinking, their behavior, and their relationships was very much part of the church's spiritual role. And it was a pastoral role as well. Now, somewhere along the line, what happened is the church began to withdraw. And I think I'll briefly trace this for you. Earlier, philosophy, psychology, and theology were very much interlinked disciplines. Psychology was one part of philosophy, and philosophy was like they used to say it's the handmaiden of theology, and it was all very much linked and part of the church's domain. Now, gradually over time, philosophy began to split from theology, and it all became about a sacred secular divide, right? And theology started retreating into things which were considered more spiritual, and philosophy was concerning itself with the non spiritual things. And somehow or the other, mental health got detached from the church in this way and went on there. And psychology later branched off from philosophy. And so there was this big gap or this big void left in the church in this area. And in the last 200 years or so, modern psychology and psychiatry have kind of filled up that void. So that seems to be what's been happening. And, within the church, there's been a feeling that these mental health disciplines are kind of like an enemy of the church.
Correct.
And that's how, this kind of suspicion about this whole field has arisen. It's really a sad story. Now, coming to our Indian context, even in the Indian healthcare context, when we see all the many mission hospitals and other things which have been there, there's been a huge focus on fields like medicine, surgery, gynecology, and all of these things. But mental health has taken a back seat, even if you see the history of mission hospitals in general. Now, this is not to discount some astonishingly great contributions that have happened. For example, you might have heard of NIMHANS, the National Institute of Mental Health and Neurosciences in Bangalore.
Yes.
One of its founders was actually a Christian,
Oh,
Dr. Frank Norona. He was a Christian and he played a big role in the founding of that major institution. Then back in CMC Vellore, Christian Medical College Vellore, the Psychiatry Department of Mental Health Center was founded by a Christian missionary. Her name was Florence Nichols. So, and of course, these two institutes and many others have also played a big role in mental health in this country. Many mission hospitals have also played a role, like Ottanchatram and Padar Mission Hospital in Madhya Pradesh, and others are there as well. But if you see overall, the majority of mission hospitals have generally neglected this area over time. And that's been the story. I think a lot more can be done, because if you see the Indian population, about 10% of our Indian population has common mental health problems like depression and anxiety. And about 1% has severe problems like schizophrenia and things like that. And India has the highest number of suicides in the world. Right? We're talking approximately 1 lakh suicides a year in India alone. And all this is not including the alcohol problems and drug problems and all sorts of things. So it's a huge problem. And I think the Indian church has to wake up that this is an area that it needs to engage with.
glad you gave that history part, because always, as part of the church and pastoral care, we always felt a need that the church had a great role in counseling and giving that pastoral care and support and all of that. So it's a sad history, but we have to realize that we have drifted away. And I think now it's time for us now, the Indian church especially, to come back and take that mantle. And I think as pastors need to take that mantle of bringing mental health back to the pastoral care of the church.
Absolutely. That brings me to the next R, which is responding to the mental health needs. What can the church do to respond to this problem? And it's interesting that over the past decade or so, there's been a huge change in this area. The church in India has woken up to this, and there's been a lot of positive things happening. The church has started actively engaging with mental health professionals and even training pastors in this area, and that's really good. And the mission hospitals in India have also really started increasing their contribution to mental health. A lot of community mental health programs have come up in various mission hospitals. They're starting to train their general doctors in mental health skills. Large bodies like CHAI and CMAI and EHA and all of these have also woken up to this need, and they're starting to really address this. So it is improving. But overall, the Indian church still needs to take up this mandate, and I think this is a great a thing for which you need a call to action, which is why we've called the talk that the Indian church can do a lot more. And I think we've been moving in that direction.
Okay, that's good. That's good. So I think there's a lot to reflect on and to see where we are, how we reached here, and definitely as the Indian church, we need to look forward to see what we can do. I think, let me guess, the third part of your talk is on reflecting.
Brilliant. Exactly.
Okay, so I think let's take some time to reflect and see what we can, as the Indian church, do in the space of mental health.